segment deals with stripping the floor, and stripping means to remove all the wax and debris that's on the floor. Stripping is project work. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of material and effort. You want to make sure you have the proper tools required for the job prior to starting the job. The most important thing to remember about stripping is that it's going to create an unsafe environment for foot traffic. So you want to make sure you close off the area of foot traffic with the proper amount of wet floor signs. You also want to make sure that you protect yourself by using appropriate footwear, in this case boots, and even stripper slippers, which will give you better traction in the stripper once you put it down on the floor. In this segment, I'm going to walk through some of the tools you may find necessary for the strip job. First of all, we're going to have to dust mop the floor. We need a good dust mop to remove all the surface debris from the floor before we start. You're also going to need a small edge doodle bug or an abrasive pad to get into areas where the main machine can't reach to remove the stripper. Most strip outs require the use of a 175 RPM floor machine equipped with a black pad. Of course, the darker the color of the pad, the more finish you're going to remove. And since we want to take off all the finish, we're going to use a black pad. That's why it's called a stripping pad, to remove all the finish. That's what stripping means. You're also going to need a tool to pick up or recover the stripped slurry or waste product on the floor. In this case, we have a wet dry vac, and this wet dry vac is equipped with a good working floor tool. This will make the difference between a good strip job and a bad strip job, because when I recover all the stripper, I won't have much residue to rinse when I'm finished. So it's critical to have a good wet dry vac with a wide area pickup tool to recover the stripper. Of course, the chemicals required, a good high quality stripper. In this case, we'll be using Misco Hot Shot. It's our #1 selling stripper. It's a very good stripper, and while I have it here, I just want to mention, and you'll hear this again, stripper should be diluted in all cases 1 gallon per 4 gallons of water. So it's 3 to 1 or 4 to 1. Very important to dilute the stripper properly. We'll talk more about that later. Of course, we're going to apply some floor finish when we're done stripping. So I have my floor finish here ready to go. After we set up our safety for the area where we're going to be working with the stripper, we're going to take a scraper or putty knife, long handle or short, whichever you like, and scrape up anything on the floor that would not normally come up with stripper. That would be like chewing gum, pieces of tape, or whatever. So we're going to scrape first before we dust mop, so that when we get the chewing gum or whatever up off the floor, we can pick it up with the dust mop. So scrape the floor first, remove any debris that's stuck, and the next step would be to dust mop the floor, just like we dust mop the floor every day, to remove loose soil and sediment. My next step is to prepare my bucket and stripper solution, so I'm going to dilute my stripper. We always use cold water in floor care or room temperature water, and stripping is no exception. So we're going to fill my bucket with 3 or 4 gallons of cold water. Stripper will not work by itself. It must be diluted. You should think of the water as an activator for the stripper. If I dilute the stripper properly, it will work better. When in doubt about dilution, simply follow the labeled directions. But again, most strippers can be used in a dilution of 3 or 4 gallons of water to 1 gallon of stripper, so it makes it nice and easy. Most buckets are about 4 gallons. This is about a 6-gallon bucket, so I have about 3.5 gallons of water in this bucket. Now I'm simply going to take my stripper and dump it into my water. Emphasizing again that stripper does not work as well by itself as when it's diluted. So you should always add water to your stripper. I cannot emphasize that enough. Water is the activator for the stripper. When the stripper goes on the floor, it will begin to melt or take the wax off the floor. I'm going to apply my stripper to the floor liberally with the mop. Notice I'm just dripping it on the floor. I'm still going to work in the pattern that I worked all of my other floor care procedures with. I'm going to work in an isolated area that I can control. And I'm going to use liberal amounts, lots of stripper. Again, we want to get that stripper, that diluted stripper on the floor. Now, we use cold water or recommend cold water at MISCO because cold water will give you consistent results across the strip job. If you think about it, hot water will make the stripper more aggressive, but it doesn't stay hot for long. Therefore, if I start here with hot water, by the time I get to the end of the hall, that water is going to be cooler. So it stands to reason that my strip job will not be consistent across the area that I'm working. Also, we want the stripper to stay on the floor. We don't want it to evaporate too fast. If we use hot water, it's going to evaporate faster than if we use cold water. So again, in floor care at MISCO Products, we recommend the use of cold water or room temperature water. Now this stripper is going to be very slippery, so I'm going to be very careful. And again, I'm applying liberal amounts of stripper. The key to a good strip job is properly diluted stripper, properly applied stripper, and proper dwell time. And by dwell time, that means the amount of time we leave the stripper on the floor for it to break down the wax. While this stripper is working, and that dwell time is usually about 5 minutes, I'm going to continue to re-wet the floor if I have any spots that look a little dry. I don't want the stripper to dry on the floor, because if the stripper dries on the floor, I will have a big mess on my hands, and it'll take twice as much work to get it off. So I'm going to make sure I keep the floor nice and wet. You can see now why safety is the most important aspect of a strip job. If someone came running through this pile of water right here, they would definitely fall and get hurt, and we don't want that to happen. So again, 5 minutes of dwell time, and while the stripper is dwelling, I'm looking for dry spots where I can add more stripper. I don't want it to dry on the floor. 5 minutes of dwell. My stripper has had a chance to sit on the floor and melt down the wax for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes is optimum. 5 minutes is minimal, so dwell time is very important in stripping. Now that the stripper has had a chance to go down and take the wax off the floor, I'm going to run through it with a floor machine equipped with a stripping brush, or in this case a black stripping pad. This will make sure I get all of the old wax off the floor. I'm going to make one pass through the stripper and work my way backwards until I have it all scrubbed up off the floor. Nice steady motion. I'm going to be careful of where I step because the floor is still a little slippery. I'm going to try to control my stripper. Don't go all over the place. Even though it's kind of a sloppy job, I'm trying to be neat about it. Notice that I don't have any dry spots. Right now, the wax has a chance to go up into the water in the stripper. And I don't have to go back and do this again, which wastes time. Lots of water. I've got my wax stripped off the floor and it's sitting in the stripper slurry right now. Before I pick that up, I'm going to use a wet dry vac and I'm going to introduce defoamer into the wet dry vac, and I'm going to show you the proper way to do that. The reason I'm going to introduce defoamer into the wet dry vac is because this is going to create a lot of foam and suds, and if I don't use some defoamer, I'll only get about that much in the vacuum cleaner before it shuts the vac motor off. So I want to maximize the efficiency of my tool by using some defoamer. The proper way to apply defoamer is to put it into the machine from the floor. So I'll pour a little bit of defoamer out onto the floor, and I'm going to run over it with the pickup tool of the vacuum cleaner. This will coat all the areas inside the vac, the shoe, the hose, and all the twists and turns the air has to make, which is where foam's created in the first place. So the best way to use a defoamer is to suck it up with the tool we're going to use to recover the stripper slurry. Now my vac is ready to pick up the stripper. I'm going to recover my stripper before it dries. recovered all the stripper from the floor. Now's the time I'm going to go and check for any spots that I might have missed, any spots where I have some residue. Because we use the right dilution, we use the right dwell time, and we use the right tool to agitate the stripper, we don't have any bare spots here. But I still have a little edge work to do, and I'm going to use the remaining stripper slurry in my bucket and apply it to the edge, where the edge is. Now, there'll be buildup on the edges because most people walk in the middle of the floor. Of course, there's always an exception to the rule, like a psychiatric hospital, where someone might walk along the edge, but most people are going to walk and wear the finish off in the middle of the corridor. There'll be some buildup on the edges. So I'll apply some stripper to the edges, and I will use my doodle bug or scotch pad or pad on a stick, whatever you want to call it, to agitate the stripper on the edges and to break that free as well. Details like this are the difference between a good job and a bad job. Details like this are what make your floor look great and make your floor look so-so. And since good-looking floors are not only safe to walk on and good for preservation of the subfloor, they're a reflection on us and the work that we do. All strippers require a freshwater rinse. Even though the stripper may say no rinse stripper, a professional will always rinse with clear water prior to applying finish. The purpose of a clear water rinse is to stop the stripper from taking finish off the floor and remove any residual stripper that we might have missed. So we're going to rinse with clear water. I'll put just clear water in my bucket. Again, cold water is best. I'll use a clean mop. It can be a cotton mop if you wish. You can use the stripper mop if you want, as long as you rinsed it out well. And just like I applied the stripper, I'm going to put a large amount of fresh clear water on the floor. Again, this is going to stop the stripper from being activated or diluted. And it's going to allow me to pick up any residue of stripper that could affect my floor finish. So we'll apply this in the same pattern we applied our finish, in the same pattern that we damp mopped. We always use the same pattern. Again, we want a lot of water on the floor. This is going to stop the stripper and get the floor ready for fresh finish. While I'm working on this floor has no protection on it anymore. What's exposed is the vinyl tile. And vinyl tile is made mostly of clay with little vinyl chips on it. Anything you pour on this floor that's a solvent base like pen ink or paint will permanently stain this tile now because it has no protection on it whatsoever. So I really want to be careful about what I put on this floor. I don't want any stains. I don't want any damage that can't be repaired. It's one of the reasons we put finish on the floor in the first place. So, lots of water. And by the time I get to the end here, the water will have enough time on the floor to dilute the stripper and stop the stripper from working, and I can go back and pick it up with my wet dry vac. This is a fresh water rinse. All stripper requires rinsing.